what I'd like to find out is because, there's probably more than just a, a minority, a small percentage of people with issues and problems. I mean, we all have our issues and problems, some more severe than others. How would you um, suggest having the hospital move from uh, being a caring type hospital to evangelical outreach for even those with issues? Because there's always a thought in people's minds, well, I'm not good enough, I'm not ready enough, I'm not prepared enough, I'm not enough. And they look at people that might be the 1 2% that are actually out there doing that. How do we get them to get over that? Well, if only I improve to a certain amount, then I'll reach that standard of being able to reach out to others. How do we move them? Well, the hospital is the church. Okay, so moving from the hospital and certain issues more severe some than others, but how do we get over the fact that while you have issues and we support those, we still need you to move off your space and move out and outreach to others because they have issues too, and are being supported. And believe it or not, they need your support as much as you think you need your support within the church. All right, so I did mention that the church is a hospital for sinners and for people with, medical and also mental health issues as well. And one of the things we have found helpful for people who are mentally ill is getting them busy doing something else. Because sometimes as we start hearing about other needs, we realize that, oh, there are worse situations than ours. Or we get distracted with that. So, for example, someone who is depressed, if we can get them to, of course, get support, get treated, and in the process try to help others, then they'll focus less on their symptoms, their feelings, and realize that, hey, others need help. And that has worked tremendously, in patient setting. We get some of our patients to, once they start to improve, they have the tools to work with, to now share, because their testimony is also a big thing. When you tell others how you overcame, whether it's through compliance, acceptance, your participation, your involvement, then people can never challenge that because that's your experience. And so you can share that with others. And it is true, we have to move from a point of having pity parties to now reaching out to helping others once we have got the tools to help others.
Okay. My name is Marta. Um, I've been going through so many things since I know the Lord, and I have an appointment with doctors. They prescribe me medicine for the pressure, but I start reading the Bible, and that's how I got healed. Every time that I go in a situation, I go in the Bible. Jesus said that he has the power to rebuke demons, and he said that if he can do it, also we can do it. Um, when I'm going through a difficult things or difficult situation, I always know that I'm going to see the power of God on me, and I put the word of God in action, and I tell him, you know what, the pressure, you don't belong to me. My body is the temple of the Holy Spirit. In Jesus' name, I order you to leave my body. And that's how I learn. I know I respect doctors because God, He designed each person, but that's how I learn. Now, there about 3 years ago, I had a big situation with my husband. With my first husband, I had so much suffering. Um, he was addicted to drugs, stealing, and I told him, I pray so much that God would change your life, but I think you not haven't made that decision to receive the Lord. So I told him, we're done. So I was praying to God to give me a partner that he love him, serve him. God answered my prayers. And about 3 years ago, my husband had a medical issue, and he arm got amputated. So many things, but I'm still seeing the glory of God in myself, because when he was in ICU, someone told me, leave him there. You can move on. And I say, no, because he is my partner. That's God sent him. And for the glory of God, I reject that pressure. For the glory of God, I always confess victory. And God has so many plans for our lives. A Christian life is not easy, but it's not impossible to serving God. And one thing that I have my goal, my to get there, there's a mansion waiting for us. And I want everyone here also to be there. My coworkers, God also gave me the victory in my work. And I told him, God, I want everybody to be here with you. And no matter what I'm going through, I know there's a better place up there and also a better place here because we're serving a living God.
That's cool. Thank you so much for lead you to believe that prayer and your faith in God is not important in all of this. It is paramount. In fact, when I'm doing private work, private practice, I do it as a coaching as opposed to a clinician approach because I like to pray with the person, do that clinically, right? That's not, we don't allow that. And so, because I believe in the power of prayer, and so we want to always involve prayer in the process, right? And if we need, and because some depression is situation based, and if the situation is resolved, then the symptoms subside. And then some form of depression, it's more with the brain, with the mind. And so that will need some medication or therapy with how to, some people don't have the skills to handle that, right? So for some, it resolves and for some, it does not. So praise God, yours is resolved, right? But if you are praying and if you are trying and it's not working, get professional help, right? That's why we're there to help you. And so we thank you for that testimony and we'll keep you in prayer because we send your testimony because that's your experience with God. So amen for that. All righty. Anybody else? Let's get brave. Yes, ma'am. Ay, get out of here.
So, so I'm asking about different types of depression, right? So, would you say that depression is genetic, like some other situations like bipolar,
Hello,
schizophrenia, and all
testing,
that,
one,
or would
two,
you say that it's
one.
situational, based on you have a relationship problems, you have financial problems, you got health problems, or can it be passed down from a parent?
So
One,
some
one,
disorders
one,
are very
one,
biological.
two, one, one, two,
It
one,
is pregnant with
one.
bipolar. If you are a twin, identical twin, your chance of
One, two, one, one, two, one. Oh, one, two, one, one. Testing, one.
if you're in an abusive situation, your husband is beating you, And if you address the situation, then the problem will resolve. Not all. Some is based on the brain chemicals. It's biological. Yeah.
I just want to address her question. So some mental health illnesses do run in families. You could see families where several people have depression, but you must know with mental illness too is how the family handles situation. That's what you're going to learn. If you think about how you raise your kids, how you handle stressors, you handle situation, is how you were a parent and how you were grown. So it's not like a direct genetic link, like something like sickle cell or something like that. But you will see it run in families, and a lot of times it's because how the family handles problems and stresses that you'll see in many individuals in the family. So some depression, you can have some genetic component, but it's not a strong genetic component. So if your mom is depressed, doesn't mean that you as a child is going to have depression. I wouldn't say any. I wouldn't say everything is behavioral. There's some genetic component, but it's not a must. If your parent has depression, if both your parents have depression, it doesn't mean that you're going to get depressed because it is not passed on like that.
And you know, we say mentally ill parents raise mentally ill kids because they were going to learn some things from you, right? So for example, even with trauma, the question is asked, why does one person experience the symptoms of PTSD and the other person didn't? Same situation, but it's the way we handle, right? The way we are able to handle situations, right? For some, they don't get stuck on why me, why did this happen. They can understand that, you know, good things happen to good people, and it can also happen to bad people. So I'm not going to adjust my situation to fit into that definition, right? And so that's where we say, you know what, hey, I'm still a good person, but something bad happened to me, right? But some folks will, good things happen to good people, bad things happen to bad people. And so if something bad happens, then I must be bad. And so you have adjusted your situation into the definition. And then that's where the problem comes around. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. And thank you so much for last night, the night before, and today.
Yes, ma'am.
I really enjoyed that. Going back to the trauma, I've lived a long life, and so obviously it's going to be easier to have more trauma over a lifetime, right?
Yes.
But as I was listening to you identify different areas of that, you can see the buildup of that over time. And like most people, there are some things that take a lot longer to get through than others. But how does that impact new traumas? Does it make you weaker for that, or it's just another thing you got to get through? I guess that's my real question on that, because sometimes I hadn't even thought about a lot of those things for a long time, and then when I heard it, I go, "Wow, no, it's amazing. I'm not just picking bugs out of the air." But anyway, it's a real question.
It's a real question. Yes. So we call that so if you were not able to overcome the previous traumatic event and you're still struggling and another one reoccur, you're more likely to be susceptible to another onset. So people say that, and it's interesting when we think of rape and even like a rape situation, that somebody say, you know what, I've been raped multiple times, different places, different whatever it is, but that person did not learn the skills to overcome the first time, and so become victimized again, and it's called complex trauma. It builds on, of course. And if you imagine, if I put a weight on your back and it's a heavy weight, and I put another one on your back, it's going to keep pulling you down, right? For some people, they become numb to it and they don't respond at all, and their emotions are gone. And for some people, they respond to drugs, alcohol, etc. And that's why we want individuals to, within a couple of weeks, if you realize that I'm still feeling this way, to seek help. Because when you get the tools, you become a lot more resilient, stronger. You're able to cope better. And so when new one comes, you learn those skills. So for example, individuals who have gone through trauma treatment, with myself or other clinicians, they learn tools. about how to handle it. So when another situation comes on, they're able to handle it and not get stuck because they've learned how to unstuck themselves. So we had a girl who got beaten up by her boyfriend, and her question was, I do everything for him. He doesn't even work. I'm the one who works and everything. Why would he do that? And I said, he's in jail right now. You can't answer that question. Because what's going to happen, she's going to keep asking those questions. She will now manufacture her version of it, and that will keep her stuck. He may be doing it because he has mental health issues or he has criminal thoughts, but or he has been, whatever it is, but you don't have that answer. And so now you're asking, how could he do that? And I said, don't even start. It's not critical, how could he? The facts are you got beaten and you have taken steps to ensure it doesn't happen again. So that's important. All right, while you were thinking, and I thank my wife for participating, so she's officially my partner in this one, right? So one question that somebody wrote is why, and I'll take the mic after, why do some people hesitate to ask for help? Any reason? We talked about it earlier today. Judgment. Fear. Fear of not being understood. Fear of being criticized. Feeling embarrassed. Shame. Feeling ashamed. Sorry? Annoyed? Annoyed of not being heard. Did you know that some people went and said that X person molested them or raped them or anything? People say, no, not him. Why would he do that? Even mothers. Yeah. Or they're blamed. It's because you wore that very short dress. No. That's not a justification to be assaulted. Absolutely not. And so those are some reasons why trust is a big thing. Trust. They can't trust that they don't trust you enough to share with you. And then for some individuals, they also don't ask for help because they don't really want to deal with processing that event. Yes, ma'am. Question or comment? Both. Okay. All right. Go ahead. Do comment. Let's hear a comment.
Okay. So just kind of going back on what you're saying about assault and
Uh-huh.
trauma. So I've read a few stories where people are like adults in the 30, 40, even 50s and 60s. They post in stories on different platforms about when they were 11 or 7 or
Mhm.
6, when they were being, molested by somebody in
Right.
the family. And the reason why they didn't tell is perhaps because that person feared to kill their family or do harm, the
Threat.
entire
Yes.
family.
Yes. That too. Yes.
So my thing is having children. I don't allow sleepovers. I don't care if you're their grandma. I don't care if you're their best grandpa. I don't allow sleepovers, right? But this is one way that I would prevent something like that to happen to my kids. But say, lo and behold, something come up and I have to go, right? And I say, okay, go sleep with your grandma. Something happens. How do you equip your children enough to know that no matter what you're told, you still tell? Right? It doesn't matter if they say they're going to murder your mom. So I don't care. I'm going to still tell my mom. Right? Or no, this is not okay. Like right away. Right? Because I'm just very flabbergasted and like stunned by a 50-something-year-old not talking, even though the person's still around them Christmas and New Year's and Thanksgiving. And they're feeling uncomfortable, but they can't speak. Like what's causing that for them? Like me, on the other hand, I would have been like the total opposite, but I've not been in that situation, so I can't really truly speak about it, right? I can't be where I'm not where they are. So I'm saying to myself, how do you help those people as children? Because they're 60, but they're still stuck in a kid's body.
So whenever you have a reactivation of a traumatic event, you go back to that time. So if it happened when you were 10, you go back to that childhood stage. Sometimes they bend in her fetal positions and so forth. So one of the things that we encourage parents to do is to encourage your children, because a lot of besides that, but let's go something back up a little bit, is that sometimes people don't share because they create the answer for themselves. Like, I don't want, mommy seems to get along very well with that person, and I don't want to break that relationship. They take it on for themselves. Nothing anybody created. So this is where you become a trauma informed care parent or church, and encourage your children to speak up, like no matter what. For example, my daughter is doing, certain, and I said to her, honey, when you go to your thing, because she needs it for her, her program, right? She needs to do this internship or shadowing. And I said, when you get there, because you really need it for, for the next level, don't do anything, take anything that you feel uncomfortable with. If not, pack your bags and come on home. I can understand that. But let's flip back to the parent who I had one girl who was saying to her mom, in some cultures, the kids kiss auntie and uncle goodnight before they go to bed. So auntie and uncle came to visit, and she didn't want to kiss uncle. And the mother said, come and kiss your uncle. And she did it, right? And realized that. So in her mind, she's figuring like, well, if I told mom that, I felt uncomfortable. So if your kid feels uncomfortable, they say, okay, don't do it, right? Because you have to start establishing what's comfortable for them, and also showing them that, hey, let's talk about it. But another thing to that is that some people through trauma, even as adults, they lose their voice and they just can't talk about it. It's too overwhelming to talk. So verbalizing it can be hard. In fact, have you heard about selective mutism? Selective mutism. Typically in children, something happens, something traumatic happens, and they just can't talk. They will only talk to specific people and sometimes no one at all. They just can't talk. They want to talk, they can talk. There's nothing medically wrong with them, but they just can't, nothing comes out. And so, it's a real diagnosis, right? It's a real diagnosis. We had a guy who had selective mutism, just wouldn't talk. And then when he came to work with me, he was talking. And I was saying to the grandmother, he said this and this. She says, well, did he write it? I said, no, he spoke. That was a shocking thing because he felt comfortable that he could talk. And so apparently everybody else, he felt unsafe talking and just wouldn't talk about it, right? And so, we have those things. Children lose their voice. Or, as I mentioned earlier on, they may even be interacting very well with the person. I figure like, so how are you saying he did all this to you? But remember now that sometimes the victims tend to idolize, especially with children, the predators, especially if they were being groomed. And the grooming part of it is a challenging one, because they give them stuff and they have that relationship and they hook them in, right? And so even my daughter was small, I would take, you don't take candies and stuff from anyone. I don't know, people just give her things without asking me. So if somebody offers her something, she'll look at us and then look back. And I know she wants to grab it, but she understands. Yeah. So those are things. And then even as a kid, I teach my daughter, don't just jump in my lap as a male. One day my wife was going to the store, and my daughter was crying to go with her. I don't want to stay with dad. And my wife said, no, stay with your dad. And I said, honey, ask her why. Ask her why. And when she asked her why, she says because she wants to go shopping too. Okay, then that's a different story. But what if she had said daddy keeps touching me here, touching me there, right? So we don't do these things, right? So we have to now start educating ourselves, educating our children that, if you feel uncomfortable, whatever that looks like to you, then let me know. Mommy will always listen. And not telling them that, how could you? Then that creates now more like, I'll never tell again because, how could you? Why did you? Or I'm going to give you a flogging because if you hadn't done this, then this would not have happened, right? We don't want to let them feel more victimized or more guilty for that, right? We want to give them support. And then in here.
I'm sorry, one last question. Is
Sure.
there a problem with the parents that allow that? Like, say, for instance, you're very open to listening to your daughter, but their parents will be like, oh, no, that's not true. What are you talking about? That's my brother, that's my uncle, that's my son, that's my daughter. No, you're lying. You're not telling the truth. What do you say for those parents? Are they mentally ill?
They're not mentally ill, but here's the thing. Would you really just think about it? Are you married? No, married. All right. So those who are married, I mean, you should be able to leave your baby girl with your husband, right? Right? Right. I mean, and listen, if you have doubts about doing that, then that's a whole other problem. That's a whole nother problem. So we don't even need to go any further. If you have concerns, shut it down, move along, get out of there quickly. Okay? So let's think about it. Now that you hear your child, so I wouldn't say they're mentally ill, but it's they're so startled. I recall a young man, a client of mine called and said to me, how do you lose your virginity? He was like about maybe 12, 13. And I said to him, can you clarify that? And he says, well, how do you, because when you think of losing virginity, we think of what, girls, right? So I said, can you clarify? He says, well, if somebody goes in your private part and insert themselves inside there, do you lose your virginity? And so rather than going to explanation, I was more like, what happened? Are you okay talking about it? And he says, the junior pastor, in some of the churches you have the youth pastor. The youth pastor just left and he came in here to pray for me. And during that 5 or 7 minute experience, he did that. So I said to him, I'm not telling your story, but because you're a minor and I have a duty to report, I'm going to have to tell your mother. Is that okay? And he says, okay. And so I called the mom. You know what the mom said to me? She said to me, no, he's telling a lie. That's not true. The gentleman just went in there for 7 minutes to pray for him. Right. But I think she was more startled that in 7 minutes you could have done that. And then so I said to her, you need to take him to the, because you want to have proof, right? You need to take him to the hospital. And then she's saying, can I finish cooking? Can I take him tomorrow? I'm like, no, now drop everything, turn it off, and you can come back. Because the food you want to have any appetite anymore, anyways, right? Go right away. But I think she was more startled that in 7 minutes you went in to pray. Here we are. So, I wouldn't say that the person is mentally ill as opposed to the denial. Yeah, denial. Because why would your brother or your husband or your uncle or the grandfather? And I've worked with sex offenders, okay? And the grooming and the stories I've heard, you know, and where the kid is like saying, Mom, I don't want to go stay with grandpa. And you beat the kid to go and stay because you got to go to work, right? And so the shock of it all, I'm doing everything I can, and so things happen, right? So I don't like to jump in and just blame folks. I want to process with them because she's on a whole different level of thinking. I guess the shock of like, she says, we just sat here and he was having some low moments and she called him to help. Now she's feeling guilty to help. And then he went in and violated, you know? And so, I don't know if it's something that illness she has, but I think it's more like it's a shock and denial. It is shocking. Yes, they did. They did. Yeah, that was processed, and he was violated. Yeah. So even within a couple seconds, that can happen. Yes, ma'am.
Oh, my mouth is big.
We can't hear you over there.
It's just like how we have the stages of grief,
Mhm.
right? Somebody who would have gone through whatever the situation is, how does those stages of that grief before they could even come to the acceptance? Because sometimes, a lot of the times, you might think that the person may
Denial.
not want to be open up because they're still going through those stages. Whether if they're blaming themselves, whether they're in denial, whether they're angry or what have you. So can you just shed some light on that? Because
Yeah.
sometimes I think before they could even open up to you, they may have to process those stages, to get
And
to
and
there.
the thing with stage of grief is it's not a linear thing. You can start and you can always go back, right? You can always move. It's not like automatic to the next, you graduate to the next level, right? And so with the stage of grief, you can get stuck at one level, one stage. That's where it is. You can't progress to the next stage, right? So if you're in denial, you can be in denial for years, right? And so that's another thing too, that they have to be able to move through the stages. But sometimes we cannot get through this stage on our own. And this is where help comes in, right? So back to the question you ask is what we're doing now. Educating parents, having these mental health days or our week where different topics are coming in, where you can ask questions and you can get guidance, right? Because educating parents will help them become stronger, become wiser, right? Because a lot of sex offending happens right under your nose. They are low risk offenders. They don't have any criminal history. They're professionals, they're whatever it is, they're the loving, nice person, right? It happens under your nose because you would never suspect them or expect them to do that. And remember, a lot of times we protect our girls, but our boys are just as vulnerable, be victimized. No, no, please ask your questions. I love it. I can do this all day long. My max is 8 hours.
So, I read another story where, um, so the mom, oh gosh, yes, so the child was violated, and the child told the mom, and the mom denied it for years upon years upon years, to the point where she gave that child up. She just left the child at a friend's house or whatever, and that person raised the child for 18 years. She came to the child's 18th birthday. And then the child started saying, "Why don't you love me? You're my mom." She's like, "I'm not your mom." She's like, I mean, you're my friend's daughter. That's your mom. I'm not your mom. So it went all the way to a TV show where they did a DNA test and told the lady that this is your child. But she blocked it off from her brain completely. It wasn't pretense. She did not remember that this was her child. She never remembered being pregnant with that child. Okay, because of the trauma. In other words, the same thing that happened to her child happened to her. She conceived that child through rape by her father. And so she refused to remember that. And so it just left her brain completely.
It can happen.
Until the DNA test proved that this was her child, she just sat there like a robot, like a statue. And then she just said, no, no. And she keeps saying no until they said, yes, this is your daughter. She's like, no, no. Until she started crying and crying and crying, and everything started coming back. And then she whispered under her breath, I was raped by my father. But for the past 18, 20 years, she had no recollection of that.
So what happens with that? Yes, that can happen. What happened is that when we have a traumatic event happening to us, the brain it goes into overdrive, and the brain says, Ainsworth, you cannot process this. So this is when I will take over. And so what it will do, it will block that memory, and you won't remember. And it's a genuine situation. So remember the story I told about the young lady who stabbed her husband? They're happy together now, but what, pardon? Well, she deserved him, right? Because who's going to take him up after with one eye, right? So they're together, right? So it's take a stab. But they're together because the doctor explained what had happened, that she had herself been raped, and she just didn't remember. She never remembered it, and it just came flooding because she was triggered. And so the brain will shut it down and keep it locked to protect you. Just like how when we have a traumatic event, sometimes you go into flight, fight, or freeze mode, and you say to someone, boy, when that dog came at me, I ran as if I was Superman, right? And I can't even walk, but I was running, right? Your body just get up the adrenaline, and you just start doing it. Or I wanted to run, but I couldn't move because you get stuck. That's when the mind takes over and you no longer can physically manipulate that, right? So it will say, hey, no memories. So that is very possible. Now, one thing I want to point out is that a lot of times when we ask, not a lot, but often enough when we ask victims, we realize that their parent, their mother, it's like a generational thing, right? And so because sometimes victims have difficulty, they become either overprotective or very laxed in their protection. And so it's likely to happen. So mothers who have been sexually assaulted, and even fathers who have been sexually assaulted, we encourage them to be very mindful to create balance in the way they raise their children. But that can happen. Yes. Yes, ma'am.
About the mother who is just giving birth, we call nowadays is like a postpartum depression. nowadays that we are those nurses who work in the L&D, we are giving health teaching even to the spouse, that once the mother is not once don't want to touch the baby, they are going into this postpartum depression. And if you just ignore it, you have seen on the TV that they even kill their kids and the newborn. They can throw their. That's why, now in a whole United States, we are giving that health teaching to the husband before they go home,
Yes.
because they might not see, like there is signs and symptoms. We have kind of list to tell them if they are not giving a bath, they don't want to see the baby, they don't want to touch the baby. That is the postpartum depression.
Mm-hmm.
And all the spouses needs to know the signs and symptoms before they leave the hospital.
I totally agree. Yeah, we're doing a lot of a lot of patient education now, and yes, that's you're so correct about that, and that's important, right? Honey, do you want to say anything about that postpartum depression? She's a pediatrician, so a lot of times, she will see the newborns after birth.
I guess I've been doing this for 30 years, so you're seeing more of it. And yes. And so, I guess some of our older parents here, when you were parents, you had a lot of support. You had extended family, grandparents, aunts, uncles, people would help to support you. All of the younger parents, no, they don't have that support. And so it's just probably the mom and the dad and nobody else. And so there's not a lot of support. And so the mom gets overwhelmed because it's not easy to take care of a newborn who wants to wake up every 2 hours. You get no sleep, you get no rest. And so I think we're seeing a lot of it now because we don't have the extended support. And as we're educating people here, if we have people having babies, we can go by and support them. If they have another child, maybe go by support and maybe bring a meal, do some support. I think a lot of it is because they don't have the extended support.
And I did hear that you guys were really loving church. I was talking to the first lady, and she said how you guys show up for them, and you want to show up for young mothers too. They're not going to have any more kids, right? No more kids, so you won't have to show up for the newborns. But within your church, who said we'd never know? Sister Walker, what are they telling me? Does he know something I don't know? Well, we do know the story of Sarah, right? So we're going to leave that now. Amen. And for Sarah, she's still a young girl, right? Okay. All right. But then we have other young mothers, right, in the church. So we want to make sure, the doctors are now educating more. That never used to happen a lot of times in the past. Their education is a big thing now. And when you see a new mother, you want to jump in and support, right? Of course, not to ask as a male, let me go bathe the baby for you, right? But offering, how can I support you? How can I support you? And if the mother is saying, I need more help, I'm not going to go bathe your baby, but I may be able to pay for someone to come do it for you, that you feel trusting with. So there are ways that we can support, but we want to show up for our members and our communities because it helps, right? And, talking about postpartum depression is a whole other topic to talk about, but maybe in a population where we have more young mothers to talk about that because, again, it can lead, it gets worse if left untreated. And a lot of times, it's often overlooked. And more single mothers now, yes. And young mothers, like 18 and 16, yes. Yes, I have a guy who is blaming his mom that she never touched him. She gave away, but she was only 13. What kind of mother could she do, right? Do you remember when you were 13? Still probably jumping around in your shorts and whatever, yeah. But those things do happen, right? So thank you so much for sharing that. Yes, ma'am.
I do have a question on the postpartum depression. I'm sorry, is it my turn? Okay. I have a family member that has my grandchildren. Then the mother is postpartum depression, but she's not trying to get any assistance for her. And the father, they're not married. So what should that person do? That the father is only on the birth certificate. He's not legally married, so he doesn't have the rights to take the children from them, from her, and she's not committing to getting the support that she wants or needs. And I know what she said, I'm very fearful about that because if you are in that situation, you can cause harm to the children.
Yes, that is true. You can cause harm, and then the kids are being neglected, probably more than likely
Yeah,
neglected.
it's 4-month old and a 1.5 year old. They're still
Yeah.
babies.
So whether he is a parent or not, I think he's listed on the birth certificate. You said he's listed on it.
Yeah, he is listed as a biological father.
Yes, he can still take it to court. He can still go to the they have mental health I think it's like the Harris Center for.
But okay, and this is the other part of it. They're not in Texas, they're in Georgia.
Okay, all right. So my information was going to be based on
Texas,
Now,
yes.
in Canada, what happens in Toronto happens in Ottawa, right? But in the US, what happens in Texas is not the same rule in Georgia, right? So what I'm going to say is for Texas, okay? And then, so in Texas, whether or not he is a biological father, he could be a concerned person. He can report his concern to a social worker like or the Harris Center for in the Houston area, and they would do what we call a wellness check. Pardon? Welfare check, yes, a welfare check, and they can do that. And if they determine that yes, the concerns are valid, then they can take action. Right? Georgia, I don't know the rules, but I would want to encourage him to seek advice there and then see what he can do because the kids will end up suffering. And here's the thing too: if she's neglecting the kids, they could develop borderline personality disorder later on in life, right? Because it comes out of either abuse or neglect, right? So we really want the kids to be taken care of as well.
My other question was, I didn't have postpartum depression. So when a mother actually says that she's going through postpartum depression, is there symptoms that you can really recognize that she is? Because I'm trying to determine, is it truly postpartum depression or is this person using it to weaponize the kids to be around?
So I wouldn't jump into weaponizing until it's assessed. So as she was mentioning, they don't want to, and you'll see, they don't want to touch, because when you have a kid, right? Young mothers, you want to hold the baby. I mean, your baby's not old enough for you to forget, right? You want to hold the baby and look at them all the time and rub them and look, you want to do all the wonderful things. Some of the people postpartum depression don't want to do that. They
Okay.
don't want to touch the kid. The crying of the kid irritates them.
Yeah, they cry and say.
Yeah, a lot of times do that, right? Anything you want to have?
You still have the typical depression symptoms, not interacting with your baby. I think is a late stage. You still have the typical depression symptoms of not wanting to.
Isolation, the not eating, sleeping.
Yes, and not socializing. You still have those because most people, when they have the baby, especially now with social media, they want to tell everybody, they want to announce it, and so their reaction is different. So trying to hurt the child or not wanting to interact with the child, that's a late symptoms. And also, a lot of people who have postpartum depression had untreated depression before pregnancy, and just the whole the whole new birth, taking care of a
Yeah.
baby is overwhelming, and so you're seeing the symptoms now more manifested.
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
I have a question that relates to that. Could that mother be considered an unfit mother? It all
Okay,
depends on what
good
she does
question.
too.
Good question. So again, I'm going to speak for Harris County, which is Texas here, right? This county, right? So for Harris County, at that time, the judge will provide the best care of the child. So they may ask a parent, grandparent, family member first, and then they'll extend it out beyond that, whether it's going to be with what is it called? CPS, yes, the FPS, right? So they will do that, right, to ensure the child is safe. Now, if it is, so they will order the mother to go and do a court-ordered assessment, and if she can afford, they'll send her somewhere, right, that they validate, and then the clinician they will determine yes, it's postpartum depression. Will come with a treatment plan that she'll have to take back to court, and she'll be expected to be compliant. At some point, the clinician will determine whether she's making progress or not, and that the child can be safe to return. Everybody responds to treatment differently, right? Because remember, no one gets
About
medicine
the-
without putting the effort to work it, right? They have to become back with their medication they prescribe. They have to show up for their therapy sessions, and not only show up, but they also have to apply the skills or the tools they are getting as well.
Yeah, I have a question. On my what I spoke to you the other night about.
Give me 1 second. Just 1 minute. See that? Don't go on. Are we good on that? Okay, good. Any postpartum depression question? Okay, all right, go ahead.
Okay. I don't know if you can let me remind you about my having a family member visit. Let me say raw, my trauma. It was an attempt of rape. And if an adult was not there, it would have happened. But I got that person out of my mind. And you mentioned about therapy the other night, and I have blocked that person out. I have two questions anyway. Block that person out. When I said block, stay away, distant, miles, country, state away from them. Even the one I call them disbelievers, who I thought would have understood. We were outside playing moonlight play. And for the only person that believed me, two people that believed me, was my uncle, my mother's brother, who, thank God, he could have been hung or something because he meant to go after that person, and my grandmother, nobody else. And these were all Seventh-day Adventists. And then the church as well. Monica, why did you lie on Elliot?
Very common.
And
Very common response and reaction.
and as I mentioned, my question now, question one, is you said therapy. And I figure if I go into therapy, it's like carrying me back over there when in my mind I have blocked them, gone, evil gone. Mind you, people will not understand. I don't hate him now.
Right.
I hated him many, many years, but I don't hate him now because I realize I am imprisoning myself.
Correct.
I look back on what damage it had done to me in my work and everything. So I'm asking, why did you say therapy?
So remember we mentioned earlier on that some people, so if it's not problematic, if you have a traumatic event and it's not problematic to you, it's not bothering you, you're not having avoidance where you're avoiding people and places and things related to that event, or you're not having hypervigilance where you're feeling activated or you're not having flashbacks, right? So for example, if you were to go to a family event, right? And why I say therapy is because sometimes you don't know when you're going to be activated. Something may happen where all of those folks are in the same space and you could have a big blow. Remember that girl I told you about? The thing, she forgot about it, wouldn't think she did therapy, but then look at what happened. She didn't even remember what had happened. That was so buried. But the touch and everything. So we don't ever know what's going to trigger a reaction out of you. So because even the way you talked about it, even though you said you're forgiven, I believe you. That has nothing to do with forgiveness. It's that it still lingers. Like you said, the person wants to calm you. You said, no, you can't come, right? You can't stay here. So you're still having some emotions about it. So in therapy, we don't go back and ask, what happened? When did it happen? What did it look like? Feel like? We don't do all of that. What we focus on is what are your thoughts? Because that's what keeps you stuck, your thoughts and your feelings. And then you manufacture those feelings. So for example, your mother may not have believed you because maybe she is having her own thing going on. I don't know.
She was dead.
Right. And it is so. So what we want to do is to help you process that cognitively so that you can be able to look at it and not be triggered. right? Because we don't want future something to happen and to trigger reaction out of you.
Okay. My second question now. I have a very, very good friend in Brooklyn, very good friend in Brooklyn who we went to school together and everything. And her daughter, we used to speak a lot, all the time. And she said to me most recently, Auntie, why I don't and I don't want to speak to you. She accusing me of telling me of person who touched her. She never. I went all over in my mind. She never told me that because it's a little girl I know from a baby. And now she said, now that you hear about it, what are you going to do about it?
So here's what I'm gonna say, Auntie, is that don't say she never told you. She may not have told you directly that Tom did this, but she may have been trying to tell you. So the little girl with the uncle was saying, I don't want to hug him, and you kept forcing her. And she was realized that mom, but even when he hugged me, I was standing stiff. She was expecting her mom to have noticed that she was stuck. She never verbalized what he did, but she said as a mother, she should have seen. Culturally, you hug your uncle, you kiss, and you move along. Come kiss your uncle goodnight. And so she processed it. She may have told you, but not in language or ways that you would have understood it. So I wouldn't say you never told me. And so that's a response I would never do. I would never say you never told me. I would say, baby, I didn't realize. I'm sorry that I didn't recognize what you were telling me, right? How did you tell me? And maybe she might says, because you kept forcing me to hug him and I didn't want to do it, and I kept saying no, no, no. But you see what I'm saying? So it may not be the way that you want to look at it. So if we look at the letter M, curly one, if you're standing above, what does it look like? Looking down, it looks like what? M, right? If you're below, what does it look like? W, right? Who is right and who is wrong? It's the same thing, right? And if I turn to the side, it's what? E, and to this side, it's what? 3, right? It's where you're standing from. So she may have been telling you, right? And the reason why I'm saying that I believe that she was telling you is because it impacted how she reacted to you. Okay? So you don't need to defend yourself.
Okay.
Simply say, I'm sorry I did not recognize what you were trying to tell me. Because
Should,
that's what happened.
so should I discuss it with her mom? Should I
How
tell
old is
her?
she?
38.
Oh, she's an adult. So no. So I would discuss it with her.
She blocked me.
Well, and the reason why I'm saying discussing with her is she asked you, so what are you going to do now? What did she want you to do?
Well, I sent her a text stating that let's talk about it, which she can detail, and if she can could go over when and how did she tell me. But as I said, she did not answer my text, and
Because what you did before caused that. You told her, she did not tell you. And that's the other thing too. We have to be very careful. Remember that when something happens to someone, it's significant to them. So they remember it. It may not be to you, and so you're likely not going to remember the situation. So I would never take it lightly. So I spent a lot of time talking about things you should never say. Oh, that never happened. How could it do? Why would he do that? Simply say, let's talk about it, right?
So from what you just told me, I am saying now, yes, she told me. Perhaps I didn't recognize.
Yes.
This is what I'm, because in my
Does it make sense?
Yes, and that's what I'm saying. I'm accepting now that she did tell me, and I missed it.
Yeah.
So, but the fact is, should I write her a letter? Because as I said, she's blocked me. Should I write her a letter and explain myself? What should I do?
So when someone has had a traumatic event, it meant that their what's the word I want to use? Power was taken from them, right? Control was taken from them, right? So the fact that she blocked you means that she's taking control of how I'm going to manage this, okay? So if you're going to write her, you have to point that letter carefully, because you don't want to go back and cause more hurt. So you may want to say, I realize that you blocked me, and I don't want to violate that position that you've taken. But I just want you to know that I have reflected, and I want to apologize that I may have said, no, you didn't. Now, my new stance is that I'm sorry I did not recognize what you were trying to tell me. If you feel comfortable and willing to let's talk about it, I would welcome a conversation with you. Can you say it very carefully? Because if you go like, I want to talk to you, you're trying to take control back from her, and she's not going to allow that. So you want to be very careful coining it, how you coin it.
Because I am scared of her because I love her dearly, and I don't want her to go through what it's like she's walking the same journey that I have walked, as like I become one of those people is one of the disbelievers.
That's why I was saying that sometimes victims can also not be able to protect because they'll figure like, nope, that never happened, right? And so, yes, pray about it. And if you need help coining that, write that letter or what you're going to do, let's talk about it, okay? Because the way you do it has to give her control, has to maintain her control, because that was taken from her.
Thank you.
I have a question regarding grieving.
Grieving, okay.
How long? Okay, it depends on the person, right? Not grieving
Sorry,
is
regarding
regarding grieving.
grieving, okay?
Grieving is correlated to depression.
So I have to answer that very carefully because we don't diagnose major depressive disorder if you're grieving the loss of someone. There's actually a diagnosis for that now, right? Because the symptoms can look similar, but we expect you to be sad, we expect you to isolate. But if it's going on for 6 months, then 6 months, then that's when we step in with the diagnosis.
Because I myself have that symptoms. I'm sorry, I get
It's
emotional.
okay. It's okay. Just take a deep breath. No, that's not deep. So deep breathing is breathing.
I lost my husband few months ago. And up to this time, I cannot go on. I cannot let go. His things are still in front of me. I cannot sleep in our bedroom. I had to go to the other room. I talk by myself and I talk to him. Looking at his picture, I turn the TV on just so I can hear a human being talking. And that's been going on every day, day in and day out. And the first 3 months when he died, I could not go on anymore. I'm diabetic and I tried to overdose myself with insulin. Nobody knew that. And my sugar went down to 33. I was by myself. I had nobody to talk to except God. I went to the office, his office, and what I saw was his Bible. So I said, maybe God is, because I prayed and I asked God, God, you gave me this man to be closer to you. Why did you take him out from me, And for some reason, I walked into the other room, I saw his Bible. And so that led me there. And I opened his Bible, and all his verses and everything are all highlighted because he was a godly man.
Right.
And up to this time, I still can't go on. And like yesterday, and most of the time too, when I'm driving around, I lost my way going home. Instead of going home, I went nowhere that I could not even go back to where I live. I just got lost. That's why I don't even drive at night anymore. That every time when I'm driving, I feel him there sitting beside me when I take him to the doctor and everything. It's been going on for months. When I went to the doctor, my cortisol level was so sky high. And then I was not sleeping. Up to this time, I'm not still sleeping. The least I can sleep is 2 hours each time. And the doctor put me on trazodone.
Trazodone is good. Is it
Yeah,
helping?
because he said that I need to sleep. He said that you look so haggard every time I see you. That's what he told me. And I said to him, Doc, I'm having a hard time. So he gave me the trazodone. It helped me, but it made me like more suicidal. And I cannot go on.
Did you tell him?
Yeah, I told him that. So he said, well, let's lessen the dose. That's what he told me. So I tried to do that. But for some reason, I'm still having insomnia.
Insomnia.
And a lot of times, what relieved me is I had his shirt, the last t-shirt that he wore when I took him to the clinic for IV therapy. And I didn't wash it. I put it in a bag. And every time I miss him, I just go and hug that shirt and kiss him.
Do you have children?
No, I live by myself.
All right, this is what we're talking about as a church. You have to show up and you have to take, somebody needs to get a schedule and check on her on a regular basis. All right, so this is where the ladies and the gentlemen come in, go mow her lawn, whatever he used to do, you take charge of that, right? Get a team together, right? So
I keep it to myself. I don't talk to anybody.
and I'm so glad that you're doing that today.
And this is the only time that I voice out because yesterday I had such an attack of depression and loneliness yesterday. That after this time when I came to the church, I was trying to let myself that I'll be okay since I will hear the words and everything, and I listen to you nightly. And it just didn't go through me of what I heard, and I still go on to depression that when I lay down in bed, I see his face.
Yes,
all the time.
that's not uncommon. Can we get together a team of ladies and gentlemen? Who's gonna take that charge of that? Okay, you will lead the team. All right, tell me your name, sister. Sharon. Sister Sharon, Pastor, with your permission. Sister Sharon, please get a list of ladies and you guys take turns. Visiting with her, she should not be driving, especially on medication, that's number one, okay? So try to limit your driving. Sister Sharon is going to get a team of folks that's going to help you. Accept help.
I stopped taking that, doctor. I stopped taking it because it made me more suicidal.
So, and we don't
Because
want it to
it's mostly attack me at night when I'm by myself that I feel like,
Yes.
I feel like stabbing myself or take
She may
more
need
and more
she may need company
insulin.
as well.
I had suicidal thoughts all the time.
When was the last time?
That was last week.
Yes. All right, before we leave, we're going to come up with a plan for you, okay, sister? And I'm going to give my number for you to check in with me. Is that okay? All right, yes, sir.
Okay. I seldom came here here in the church, and sometimes when somebody will tell you, Helen, I did not see you for a while, and I just look at her and I said to myself, I think she needs somebody to talk to. She was on the other side of the table when she saw me. And I said, like, sometimes people ignore when they say something like, you have to have like a clue that someone is crying for help. But we did not ignore it. But once the people will just keep on talking to you, let them cry, let them talk, just listen, as what you said.
Yes.
Because sometimes, there are some of us that have a tendency just to say, oh, you're going to be okay. You can move on. You can do this. You can do that. No, you cannot say that to a grieving person. The way that you deal with this one is to listen, as what you said, that I heard you there, which is the right and appropriate to tell the grieving person. You cannot just make them laugh or whatever, because you have to really focus your mind to them. Once they will say something like what she said, that she's about to overdose herself, that is one big clue that the church needs to attend on that one.
Yes. So, all right. So before we leave, I'm going to make sure there's a plan in place for you starting today. You're going to be okay. We're going to work with you and make sure that you're okay. Right? We love you. God loves you too. So we're going to support you, okay? And that's going to make a big difference. Right? So I'm not going to forget you. I'm going to be right here.
And also when somebody said like very sensitive, to any comment of some people, you don't ignore that because they are going through that you don't know why they are really sensitive of what you said. That is the truth, because when I work with, I work in the ER like trauma, psychotic patient. There are some patients who are agitated and don't want to be touched or anything. How many nurses are circling this psychotic patient? And then nobody can take a blood pressure. Nobody can take the temperature. Nobody can touch her. When I look at her, I just listen. I just focus myself on her. And she said, you can take my blood pressure. Sometimes, you have to look on them so the trust will build on that. That is the one that you're gonna have, like, you cannot just like give any judgment or any comment or anything. Just listen. You don't have to say anything, because sometimes you're gonna be okay. You're gonna be no. Just listen. Yeah, that is the most important treatment.
And I want to just add, this is my sermon come alive. We talked about earlier today that people sit in the pews and we don't even know. Here we are, somebody who attempted overdosing and having all these thoughts and these feelings, right? Sitting right in the pews and we don't even recognize, right? We sit right beside them. So, and I don't think she is, yeah.
I know. That's the thing that's why we do have the responsibility.
Yes.
We are so busy with our lives.
With our lives, yes. And so we want to do that. So we're going to have a plan in place for you, my dear sister, and we're going to support you through this process.
Thank you.
You will get help. All right, this is my sister.
I think that as a church, that's where we are lacking, that we are not really cognizant of our community, of the people in our church and the things that they may be going through. I have a personal experience also that with my son became, well, he was diagnosed autistic, and my only son. And I'll tell you something, if it were not for very good friends on the outside, okay, who gave me support, I cannot say that my church family rallied around me. I cannot say that. And I think as a church community, we need to really become more aware of our people and what is going on with our people. Somebody lost somebody, somebody's going through a divorce, and things like that. And what we as a church community can put in place, okay, to be able to help people, our community, to go through some of those stages that are happening in our community.
Amen. And I want to pause here just for a moment to applaud your pastor. Give him a clap for putting together this week. Many pastors do not do this. Let me repeat it. Why not? Because they don't know, don't care, or for whatever reason. Too busy. It's not relevant. And so I sense you have a pastor who looks at different aspects of your life. I know evangelism is a big thing for him, but also your mental health is another concern for him as well. And it's also evangelism as well. Yeah, it's also evangelism as well. And so do not take it for granted. Do not take him for granted, because there are many churches in this local area that did not recognize this week, this month, as Mental Health Month.
I spoke to myself, I said, Pastor Walker, in initiated this. Thank you. Thank you, Pastor.
Have,
Oh no, I was first.
He didn't have to move on because she paid somebody to do it so he could be able to do this, right? Oh, no. He had no years. And he feels over. Guess what? Next year coming, you don't even know it. It's gone. Because several churches.
Jamayan. Jamayan.
You're getting good stuff. And at least he has raised awareness. And now he knows what he needs to do with his church because now we're having town hall conversations, right? So that's important. Yes, ma'am.
When you have been molested or raped as a young person, what are some of the things that you'll see manifested, if not treated, how some of the things that you'll see manifested as an adult, or what are some of the triggers?
All right, so when they say she's a child, oh, in terms of question I have to ask, was it by a family member? Was it by
No family member, dead stranger.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right, so some symptoms is
I
so
was
it's trauma.
first
Trauma could
to
present-
ask question. Been waiting for many time. Ay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry, it's open.
Okay.
No,
All
I
right,
was.
yes. So you could experience the trauma symptoms, which is going to be the avoidance, the flashbacks, the hypervigilance, or you could experience symptoms of depression and anxiety as well. Depression because you're ruminating over what happened to you. Anxiety because you're worried it's going to happen again. And when I see anxiety and depression, I always check for trauma because if we address the trauma, then the anxiety and depression will subside, especially if the medication not working. Sometimes they can become promiscuous, or depending on how young you were, you could develop what we call borderline personality disorder, where you have this dysfunctional relationship with others, right? It looks like bipolar, where you have these mood swings going on, irritability. You could have dysfunctional relationship with significant others, wanting to be in control as well. So those are some symptoms that we could have.
Okay. I remember when I was young, I was maybe about 9, 10, 11, somewhere there. I remember my father said to me, "Don't trust any man." And I kind of hated him for it because I said, why would my father that I love so much would tell me that? And it wasn't until I was much older that I understood. I remember my cousin at one time attempted to assault me. And I said, I'm going to tell my mother. I don't know. That just came out. And after that, he stayed far from me ever since that. So, I guess maybe because I had things that my mother would tell me, I felt comfortable enough to say, I'm going to tell my mother.
Right.
And so because of that, he stayed far from it ever since that. Yeah. But as it relates to, I was just wondering about the triggers when you get older.
And even though, and so here's the thing, even though there was no finalized assault, just the fact that you were in that moment trapped or felt that you could also have been traumatic for you, right? So you could also experience symptoms related to trauma, so because that was traumatic, right? I can't imagine being held and somebody trying to break my clothes off, and break me, right? So that could be traumatic. So even if it's not complete, it could still be traumatic. So you can still experience symptoms. But here's the thing, guys. I'm going to leave my number. If you've got questions, right? Because some questions you may not want to ask publicly, and that's okay. You can still call and ask or text and ask because being aware is the first step, right? It's the first step to recovery. Right? Yes. Being aware is the first step to recovery, and you need to get answers, right? And so that's a good place to start. Yes, my sister.
Okay, my question is about I have like a member of our family having this 12-year-old and then I don't know if something happened or it happened, but the kid shut off, tried to just to make blank everything. So we questioned because when I went to the Philippines and I was asking, what is the first thing that you learn about these things? The only thing is that when we have to tell that you go with your what is your elder or your uncle or whatever to go with him and take you to wherever, and she was really like having tantrum that we don't understand. So it was supposed to be the sign already, but I was not around. So when all those things that is being explained to me, so I was trying to talk, but she will not talk to nobody. And then we already confronted
She won't speak.
she won't tell the
Oh, she won't talk about what happened.
yeah, of what happened. So we tried because one time they found something that is really she was hysterical just to see that guy, very very hysterical. And so when I went home to the Philippines, because they were telling me, so I went home to the Philippines and tried to observe what's going on. So nobody can really talk to her and brought it to whatever, going to the hospital, what then she won't really agree for anything. So I tried to approach being in the medical field, being a nurse, to approach in a proper way. How am I going to get her trust? So I started talking to her, and then there's what is this also with the nuns, because we don't have exactly a group in the Philippines pertaining to this one, right? So there is in the convent with a nun, and then she was asked, "Who do you think will you trust of all the family?" And then she told my name. So I started working on her. I did not really directly ask her, is something happen? And then when she started opening to me, but you know how it is also, those people like, oh, you just let it happen, something like that, instead of understanding her. My concern is that even though she's striving now, she excel in anything. She become a very good leader. She excel in school. She is everything. But my question is she really recovered? Because somebody, instead of getting better, because she was being accused instead of what this is. We went already to several things, and then just like for 5 seconds, everything that I've done were being blocked off again. So for now, my concern is that even though she is very good in school, she become the leader, she's very outspoken, she's in everything. But I was really concerned for that one. Even until now, I'm not comfortable because she's trying to excel for everything. What about if there's a relapse later? Do you think something will happen? For now, she's already a 19-year-old. Yeah, but I am scared. Um, because I'm not always in there. Yeah, so but I am really scared with all these things that is going now. Will there be any relapse later on?
Yes, I will respond on that one.
George, you have a question?
You know, I have a friend long time ago when I came here in United States, and she is a musician, and she always wants me and her to go out and eat. So I keep on doing it twice a week, and then I came to her house. She don't have a kid, and then one day, because I become busy, and then finally she called me, and the relapse came over there. She was abused long time ago. She excelled in music. She is an A student. She is like the relapse is later on that I have seen in her. She was already like 40 years old that time. Then when I came back and see her, and she told me all the stories what happened to her. When she was like 5 years old, 6 years old, and she said like, I become the wife of my father. That's why she told me, and that relapse just come in at the age of 40.
So just a quick.
Just excuse me, because these things it's supposed to be when she started opening to me, and then it happened because one of the member of the family, instead of understanding her, she was being attacked. So it everything was gone. She will not, and I said, "Do you want me that we have to put this person in prison? Something happened or not?" Because I could not really directly ask her, "Something happened or not? Do you want me that we have to pin him down?" Because by doing that, you being a minor, is still we can pin him down. And then yeah, so I was telling her, but if you don't want to do it now, you have the what is that thing that you can still sue that person even though at the up to the age of 21? Statute of limitation, yeah, correct. So that's the one. So I was saying, if you change your mind, we will do that. But I when one time when I told her that we have to go through, but then she said, "I don't want that people will judge me, and then I could not move on, or I will kill myself if you will post through with that."
So remember, one quick thing is that don't do because you don't want to move ahead of her. That's number one. But remember, if for those of who have children and grandchildren, because maybe grandparents, when the child is doing well and there's a sudden change in behavior or sudden change in grades, dropping and stuff, you want to check it out, right? If you feel you're not getting anywhere, then seek professional help, right? Someone who's able to skillfully extract that from the child.
I've done
Um,
that.
Yes, and so the question about relapse is that relapse is
Yeah, that's why I'm
possible
scared.
later on. That's why we're doing this, giving you the tools so that when that time comes, when those triggers come, you're able to hold up your shield, right, and be able to ward it off, right. So the tools are really your shield to ward it off because you are going to have triggers. The song that for some people it's a song that creates a trigger, right. So triggers will come and we can't predict when they will come, but they will come, and but because you have the tools necessary through therapy, then you'll be able to ward off, be able to stand firm or be more resilient to that. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, my question concerns hormonal changes and how they affect our mental abilities. Hormonal changes in the body, how it affects our mental.
Give me a specific one, or want me to be very general? You want me to be very general? Do you have something in mind, or just hormonal changes in general?
Just in general.
In general. All right, I'm going to put my wife on this one with me. Hormonal changes to some medicine and that. But I know that. Go ahead. You want to talk first?
Alfred?
Yeah,
Am I going to be in trouble later on?
No. Well, I'm a pediatrician, so I think about hormone changes. I think about my teens. So, going into the teenage years, I wouldn't say that a hormone change, but you're going from a child where you're dependent on your parents to a stage where you can do more things on yourself. You're getting more autonomy, but you're still not an adult. You're still not thinking as an adult, and so because of those conflicts, you're still really a child getting into an adult. Because of those conflicts, you might see more behavior where you might see more aggression, more resistance. But it's not so much hormone, it's so much that you're getting from one stage to the other, and your brain not able to handle those changes yet because you're really not an adult to make your own decision, and you're still not a child. You can have some independence. I guess the next hormonal change is probably thinking about is menopause. It's probably menopause, and so in menopause, because of the decreased estrogen, you do have some hormonal changes. Some of the ones will be sleeping. And as we mentioned in all our mental health things, if you don't sleep, that puts you at risk for mental health illnesses. It puts you at risk for depression, being more aggressive, being more irritability. So that's probably what some of the spouses are seeing, because the wives can't sleep because of hot flashes, because of this decrease in estrogen, and so they have more irritability. But all of this is just a phase. The same way the teenage years is such a phase. Most parents will tell you, I want to bypass the teenage stage and go to 21. It's like I have a different child. And so you want, so the same thing, the menopause is just a phase, just a phase your body going to go through, and it's going to bypass, and you're going to get better.
The only thing that happens, dear wife, is that sometimes people divorce in that stage because they have a desire to fight for that stage. The air condition on, air condition off, So that becomes sometimes a challenge, and some people don't get to that stage. But in terms of mental health, to say you're going to be psychotic or stuff or hormonal changes.
The medication that you give sometimes is to balance your hormonal.
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
Pero may ano naman yun, side effect. Suicidal ang ano. Kaya yung kasabi, suicidal ako. Meron pag yun ang ano sa iyo, huwag mong ituloy. Kasi karamihan ng psychotic ay suicidal. May depression yun eh. Oo. Karamihan.
Yeah, so chemical imbalance, chemical imbalance, the brain chemistry.
Generally, hormonal changes causes mental illness. You have to get a real doctor. You have to oh, sorry. I wouldn't say hormonal changes really cause mental illness. That's that's just too broad. You really have to have zero level of a hormone, which most people are not gonna have. So I wouldn't want to associate any hormonal changes with mental illness. They're two separate things.
For example, when a doctor does an intake on a mental patient, he always requests a blood work. Always requests a blood work before he does anything else.
Yes, but from my experience, they always come back normal. Never got a patient that had any mental illness with a normal blood test. Very, very, very rare. But they just have to be cautious and recover every year. But it's like almost less than 1%. You're gonna get any chemical imbalance, and it's probably your kidneys, and it's probably your liver. Somebody's depressed, we do all the tests. All of their tests are gonna be normal. It's very, very rare that you're gonna get any abnormality.
Okay.
All right, so just my timekeepers, remember that I can do this for 8 hours straight. That's my cutoff point. Go to break, and then I take a break for lunch or sleep, and then we kill another 8 hours. So I need a 1 hour break, and then we get it back again. Okay, so you have to stop me, okay? So don't sit and wait for me to get tired. It's not gonna happen.
Because I work in the healthcare. Okay. Before you go and renew your nursing or registered nursing, the main point in here in Texas is about the elderly, depression, and suicidal. You have to have that kind of CEU. That means because when I work in the ER, you can see mostly the elderly right now is rampant because of this.
Yes, so suicide and so it's very high because of loneliness. It's very high among the elderly, right? So you want to make sure that with the elderly population that you are checking in with them. There should be a team checking with them to make sure, especially after the loss of a spouse, that becomes really, really hard, and the risk of suicide is even higher. And that's statistics wise. So it's not just unique to you. It's just the statistics. That if you're elderly and lost a lot, because you spend the last 40 years with someone, that's like your hit, right? And for it to just be ripped off, it's not like you decide, okay, I want you to die today, and you decide that it's just ripped from you, right? And so that's hard, right? That's a lot of pain, right? And so the risk is higher.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Maybe you can transition now to another form of trauma. I think this is about a betrayal trauma.
Which one?
Betrayal trauma.
Betrayal trauma. There's spiritual trauma too, just so you know.
Okay. My question is rage and anger a symptom of a trauma, especially betrayal trauma or other trauma?
So when we think of trauma, trauma is an event.
Okay.
When you were betrayed and you were, reactive to that. But when we think of, we only assign clinically 2 diagnoses for that. Acute stress disorder, 3 days to 1 month. After that, it's post-traumatic stress disorder. The symptoms are typically the same: avoidance, hypervigilance, flashbacks, nightmares, irritability, your sleep, with sleep, right? Or disassociation. So if you're presenting with any one of those symptoms, any one or more of those symptoms, then we assign those diagnoses, right? So I want to be very clear that we don't talk about just trauma. Trauma is the event.
Okay.
Acute stress disorder or post-traumatic stress disorder is the process. The symptoms are being present.
Can you elaborate more on flashback?
Flashback is when the individual has a recollection or reliving the situation.
And he can manifest symptoms like
And the symptoms, it's as if it's happening right now. So you're feeling everything you felt when the first event happened.
okay, so when you had a betrayal trauma and your immediate reaction was anger and rage, could that happen again when you're triggered?
So not in isolation to, I touched your cocaine and became angry. That's a whole different thing. It's more like unprovoked. You just have a flashback about it and you start experiencing those angry.
Because I'm talking about personal experience now. There are instances that I think I had a betrayal trauma event, and even watching a movie that, shall we say, almost similar to what happened to me, it can trigger rage and anger. How would you?
So now, it comes at the same thing that you had a flashback or you got a trigger.
Okay.
And you experience a flashback, and it's as if you're reliving that experience.
Mhm.
So that would be a symptom.
And what's the best
Treatment?
Treatment's
all going to be the same trauma. So we start off with cognitive. Well, I do CPT, which is cognitive processing therapy, because the betrayal maybe 20 years ago. Okay, you're watching a movie that's not the actual betrayal, right? Just reminds you of it. And so it's the thought and feeling that's triggering the reaction you're having.
Okay.
Right? And so that's why we don't go to what was the details. We'll talk about the details just to kind of create some
background?
But we don't do sessions talking about it. We focus on your thoughts and feelings related. We call it stop points.
Okay.
What's keeping you stuck and how to unstuck yourself, right?
Okay.
And so and we, for example, it's very unique. For example, we don't have the type it, we have the writing, because there's a difference between writing and typing your assignments. We also, if that doesn't work, it's like you go to the doctor and you realize that they did some tests and it's not really working. You go to the ER and then they say, hey, we can do surgery. So we do EMDR, which is a higher level treatment that we do. They have to be trained in that as well. They're going to the surgeon, and then we do that with you, where we actually literally, but for some people they use this kind of them to do this. It's not hypnosis. You're still aware, but you're way more relaxed. See? We use our fingers, or I use tappers, where you hold 2 things in your hand. And what happens is that during, as you are recording the event, as you're watching the event, what are you going to get? You're going to get angry. But what happens that when you have the tapper or you're watching the finger, it's when you move back and forth, it triggers the brain to focus on the finger. Stay focused, or in this case, the vibration in your hand. So I turn the volume up, the intensity up, back and forth. So your body's responding to this while you're watching. So it's distracting you and allowing you to watch without judgment. And so we keep checking, what was the level this time of treatment? And I said, I was able to watch. I didn't have as much reaction because of this. And then we keep allowing you to go through until we get to 0 or 1, where you can be able to watch it. And so if there's no more reaction out of it, then it means that we've addressed it.
Okay.
But you have done some grounding activities with you, like for example, deep breathing. Because when you're angry, you're breathing, right? So you're taking control of your breathing, which you perhaps lost at that time. We also do with you as another grounding exercise. We do the safe space. So if you're getting activated, you can switch to your safe space and calm yourself down. And we also do with you the treasure box, where we allow you to put any thoughts or feelings into the box, and you have to keep. So you can open that box put it in and lock it, which means that what's the fear? Oh, someone's going to find the key, but the key can then nobody else. You have to activate that open the box, and so it creates a safe space. So you can take that feeling, put it in the box, and feel safe. So we have done those grounding exercises prior to engaging in EMDR.
Okay, so my last question is, so it's totally separate from just being irritable and easily gets angry, right? Okay.
It's you have to be triggered, and then it reminds you of that event.
Okay.
Anyone else? All right.
One last one.
Okay,
Last one for the road.
Okay, 8 hours. Okay. Go again.
So I'm going back to what we spoke about earlier about like people violating children, right? So you have a cousin, an auntie, a grandfather, whatever, a friend, pastor, whatever. But the thing that puzzles me is like when it happens from a mother's perspective, somebody who bore a child, carried that child 9 months, supposed to be nurturing to that child, and violates that child. Like, mhm. I've seen many examples where it's the mother,
I have.
and I'm like, what? Like, what's going on with the mother? Like,
So here's the thing. Again, so as a clinician, we always approach, and person should do that right enough, right? From a non-judgmental stance. Because I don't know what's going on with that mother. So I can't even give a response. But safe to say that something not natural is happening. We asked one mom about the child. You know, the child was what, 17, and said to his friend, said, "Oh, no, I have sex with her." And then he says, "Yeah, I have sex with my mom."
hey, Jesus.
And then everyone was like, "You're who? That's nasty." Okay? When we confronted her, and I tried to let my mom. But here's the thing: when we approached her, she said, "I don't know what you're talking about," and she just totally dismissed and continued as if. But I said it to my mom. She says, "Oh, stop it! You're nasty." Right? That's a reaction, right? From a mother, right? But for her, it was as if we got no reaction out of her. She was just like, "I know what you're talking about," and just moved on. All right, let's do the math, right? So yeah, we've had those. Like I said, I work with sex offenders, and this is what the state calls sexually violent prisoners. Means that when they left prison, they weren't released. They had to go to a treatment facility because they were so, you know. And female predators are, let me let somebody say it, please. Say that. They are severely worse than men. When a woman violates a man or a boy, it's not good.
Oh, wow.
It's
Okay.
not good thereafter.
So, like, okay, so my other question is in a relation to grief, right? So, I mean, the sister spoke about it's been a few months, right? But is there really a time limit for grieving? Because people can grieve forever. It's just the way that you cope with it, right?
So here's the thing with grieving. It's now a new diagnosis that we're having. So with grieving, it was never meant to be more than 6 months initially. Because think about it, most people resolve. You lose your spouse, and in 6 months, I mean, you still miss him, but you get on with your business, and you'll move along, and you're not crying anymore, and stuff like that. So we go up to 6 months. After 6 months, we call it major depressive disorder. Now you're depressed because it should resolve within 6 months. Now they've just added, realize that people are going longer. And so because we're saying, hey, we want to do treatment right now, instead of grief counseling, 3-4 sessions and we're done. And we move on. But now we realize that people are going longer already. And so we now have to now create a diagnosis for it and now provide a treatment that's expensive. So insurance companies will never allow you to give a diagnosis like depression for it because that's natural response. But nowadays we can do now grief therapy for as long as it takes to get you better because we realize that's not diagnostic problem. My brother at the back there, and then somebody before you.
Oh, okay.
Can you tell me like? Oh, mention something quickly.
There you go.
I worked at a nursing home, and there was this young man. Yes. And there was this young man, as Sister Avril was talking about. He used to come into the nursing home to have sex with his mother, who was a resident there. And after we found out about it, he was denied visitation rights.
Yeah, so, and so remember now, before we judge the young man, Remember now, for such young man, you know, if that was normalized for him as he was small, and this young man just casually said it to his friends. And now we're reflecting back, the mother would isolate him from girls and create, he was like one girl, she would create obstacles in the way for him and prevent him. So for him, not judging him, that was normal for him.
Yeah, he was groomed into that.
He was groomed into that role. So we don't want to be judgmental, right? As God's people, we should be judgmental, right? But it doesn't mean that we accept.
So who has mental? I'm here. Who has the mental disorder there or condition there? The mother or the son?
So again, remember now, we're saying that we don't want to be judgmental. Because again, like the young man, I don't know if she was groomed that way. I don't know that was a norm for her either, right? We don't know. So we want to get more information, but I can say it's unhealthy. And not something that is normal. Yes. Barbara.
Okay, so my question is, I'm not sure if I missed this, but through a traumatic incident, let's say that someone can't sleep. Like for myself, I get about 3 to 4 hours sleep a night, and I could still function perfectly in the day. Mainly because in the nighttime when I try to sleep, every little sound I hear, every little bit of movement, like pretty much my anxiety, it's so alert that I could hear everything. Um, Now I've been prescribed medication. I don't like taking it because it knocks me out and pretty much I'm dead to the world. Is there a treatment for that, or what do you recommend?
If you go to a psychiatrist, what are they going to recommend?
Pills.
Nothing else, right? And some will say, hey, you don't want to attach. So the best treatment, depending on the intensity, is psychotherapy and psychotropic medications. And then once you get the skills, they can adjust your medication as well. But if you're insistent on that, then what we do is exposure therapy.
Because the thing is that, like I said, I function good with that amount of sleep. So for me, I think I'm fine. But my therapist say that no, you're not, because you need to get your rest.
Because I was going to say, Robin Peter with Big Paul, right? This here's what's going to happen to you. They talk about Alzheimer's linked to sleep issues, right? Not getting enough sleep, right? Or you become more irritable, realizing you're irritability, right? And that means you're more susceptible to crashing at some point. Yes.
Well, I would probably say that you need a sleep medicine physician to see the reason why you're not sleeping. So you need there must be a reason. So to go on try to figure out what the underlying reason is. Huh? Oh, I didn't hear that. Okay.
So that's why we would do. So psychiatrist is going to prescribe the medication,
But there are other non-medical things you can do. So he says he gets triggered by noise. So even wearing headphones, making the room very dark, if that what it is. Yeah. Daytime exercise, early morning sunlight, using. Yeah, there are a lot of non-medical things you can do to get you to sleep besides medicine.
So it's about your sleep hygiene. Right. So that's what I'm saying. It's going to come back to the trauma.
Excuse me. As it pertains to Brother Samuel, you mentioned exposure therapy. Could you explain that?
Oh, exposure therapy is where we would, if he knows a specific sound that triggers him, it's not going to be is it just sound or just specific sounds? Movements and stuff, right? So we would do exposure. Well, we'd have to do it in the daytime where exposure therapy is where you put the person back into a similar situation. We have several stages. We would talk about it, and for some people, just talking about it makes them already, anxious. And then we talk about it for a while and getting sensitized to hearing a conversation or play sounds in the office while we're having a session. So we'll say to him that you realize that you are not as activated with the sound. So we let him sit and close his eyes while we're talking. And we realize that because he's focused on the conversation, he's not focusing on the sounds. And so he's not as reactive. So we'll point that out. And then we would do what we call with exposure therapy is now where we're actually going to, we're going to schedule it for 5 p.m. or 6, in the evening for maybe 2 hours where you just sit down and she will know that. So we talk about, your the safe space. We have done all the grounding exercises with you. And then we have done observe and see how we would adjust things. So for example, you'll be there through therapy, we're keeping a very low, not hypnotized state, but a semi-conscious state. And so he can get up if he wants. If you touch him, he will know he's not totally out. And then we will work with him so he becomes sensitized. Because I'm not sensitizing him to sound. After a while, he realized that, okay, it's safe, nothing's going to happen to me. Because he's uncomfortable because something traumatic happened and that makes him uncomfortable. So people I said don't want to sleep because they're afraid that if they go to sleep, that's what they can't even describe it. If they go to sleep, something bad may happen.
I have a friend.
Change those thoughts.
I have a friend of mine in New York. He was in Vietnam and he was experiencing some serious flashback. And he had to go into the hospital for quite a while, but then he came out and he had his condition had improved. I don't know if they give him medication or whatever it is.
Any other question?
Okay. Is there such a thing as Christian belief or spiritual mental illness? I'm asking this because we believe in the spirit prophecy. We believe in the writings of Ellen G. White. There are still people in church. They knew that us before we accept God, before we accept baptism, we should believe in the writings of Mrs. Ellen G. White. But they insist of staying in church because they believe that this is the best way for them to be, to be in heaven someday, to get accepted in heaven someday. My question is, if these people doesn't believe in the writings of Ellen G. White and they remain in church, can you consider them spiritually sick?
Pastor, that's a pastoral question. I have a response, but I'm going to use the expert, right? So he's saying that if someone, as a church, we believe the right of Sister White, and he's saying if a person does not believe in her, is he spiritually?
If a person does not believe in Ellen White's writing, if he's spiritually sick, no, the person isn't spiritually sick. It just means that further education need to be done. Because a lot of times what we find happening is, especially Adventist members, do not understand how, when, where to use Ellen White's writing. And there's a lot of myth out there. But to answer the question direct, no, the person isn't spiritually sick.
Notice I am very skillful. I direct medical questions to the medical doctor, and then
I have a question, a spiritual application here. Now that you mentioned spirituality, because we are Christians, right? Believing in Jesus Christ. What about individuals who are actually demon harassed? How do we differentiate with a mental situation or it's a spiritual situation where demon possessed or demon harassed? I don't know if Pastor want to take this one.
So I can address that on Pastor Ken, but I can address that on too. So, when we have some individuals, when they're psychotic, they become overly religious, right? They will say that they are the Messiah and that if you don't believe in whatever it is, they burn the church down and they will lock the doors, lock everybody in and just burn the church down because they say that you are, something against the Christ or against whatever. And that by burning you, you'll be reincarnated into something else, right? They become over religious. We call it religiosity. So individuals who experience mental illness, it's not the same as someone who, well, the demon possession, I guess that's a more spiritual thing. I don't know about that. But But in terms of, we don't see it in that light as clinicians. We look at symptoms. So individuals who are psychotic will talk about hearing voices, and the way they, and it's not that I'm hearing voices, like it's the way they describe the voice. And we have actually psychological tests that we administer to determine if they're truly hearing voices. Like if you're hearing voices I'm talking to you, you should show as if you're attending to internal stimuli. When you're having normal conversation with your hearing voice, it doesn't work like that, right? And so we don't see demon possession in that light. As there is a demon possession, I don't know. That's when they pass the sermon for another time. I'm taking off the hook today. He's resting his leg, okay? All right, but let us just be real that, you know, that when Saul went to the witch of Endor, something came up and spoke to him. All right? So let's not be unaware and don't have amnesia regarding that. But the Bible says that this is the Bible provides very clear understanding as to how we're to move forward. It was very clear that Saul had done wrong. Right? Yes, ma'am. Let me get permission. It's okay to just answer that? Yes, go ahead. Okay, all right. I just want to be respectful, right? Okay, so we call it auditory hallucinations. So when individuals are hearing voices, I like to demonstrate it, but let me try to describe it. When they're hearing voices, it distracts them from being focused. I'm sorry. When they're hearing voices, it distracts them from being focused, right? So, for example, a lot of times I don't have patients say, "Oh, I'm hearing voices," and they're having conversation with me normal, not appearing as if they're trying to turn sunlight. So it's not just here. It's not. I will ask them, "Does the voice? Do you hear the voices? You know, all the time at random times?" And I said, "It's whispering, right?" And so, depending on how they describe the voice, they'll say, "Oh, yeah, my mom heard it too," right? Nobody else should hear it. That's number one. So they're hearing. I had a lady who came in for a disability, and she was smiling and she was warm, and I enjoyed my conversation with her. And then she was telling me she was hearing voices, and she gave me the disability form. And it was a free clinic, and I signed the bottom of the form, and I guess she figured, yeah, that is what hooked. So I said to her, "How do you know you're hearing voices?" And she says, "Even my husband hears it too." I said, "Oh no, is he here? Yeah, he's in the car." So he came in and he validated, "Yeah, I hear the voices too, but you know, Doc, I don't pay attention to that, right? I just go to sleep anyhow." Right? Social Security. And she was pretty upset about it, right? So he should not be hearing the voices as well, right? But remember, the thing is that the voices it's people's response to the voices, right? And they exhibit other symptoms, like they might be smearing pieces on the wall, they might be pacing back and forth, and it's really like it's in the head and they want you to stop and it won't stop. It's as if you have, one of the ways I demonstrate is that if I have you standing here talking to you and then I have someone talking loud in your ears and someone's over here talking and I'm trying to talk to you, after a while your focus is going to break. I'm doing like, shut up or stop, or you're not answering my questions clearly because you're so off, right? And I'm standing right here talking to you, but you can't focus because it's so distracting.
Noises,
right? So when I'm talking, if you're able to keep the conversation going with me, then I will say the person voiced hearing voices. However, he did not present with any evidence of attending to internal stimuli, which means that he didn't seem distracted at all. Why? Is there anything on that side? That's all okay.
On hearing voices, I hear it a lot from preachers when they say, "And I heard the Holy Spirit spoke to me." Shall we take that as a figure of speech or?
Or Abraham, go kill your son.
Yes, because I hear that a lot from preachers. And somehow, to be honest, I don't believe it. Literally that he heard the Holy Spirit, but I don't know. We have pastor here. Maybe some pastors literally hear the voice of the Holy Spirit. But
So I'm going to defer that. I think pastors and sabbatical right now, but I'm going to defer that to for another time. However, it's not the same, as I was describing, it's not the same as when Abram said he heard God's voice to go, it's some of those things like you're talking with them and the distraction, they are able to respond. And with Abraham, as the Bible recorded, When Isaac asked him questions, he provided sound responses, did not appear distracted. You know what I'm saying? So those are some of the things that we look at. And then there are other symptoms that present itself as well alongside that. All right, my dear sister, here. I walk over.
Growing up in the Caribbean, there is a certain stigma amongst, I guess, the older generation and I guess your parents per se, when you as a child or children suffering with mental illness, um, and being afraid that your parents are going to say, "Oh, don't worry about yourself. Don't worry about that. Oh, you don't have this. You don't have that. You're trying to put sickness on yourself. You're trying to put sickness on yourself." How do you begin to navigate a conversation, especially when it's difficult, when you know that they probably also never had that safe space? They also probably suffering themselves from a mental illness that they are unaware of. How do you begin to form a conversation and try to seek help for yourself?
Okay, great question. So I would get help first before navigating the conversation, okay? Because then your therapist would help you navigate that. But one of the things that I would encourage you to do if I was working with you is that after we've gotten through and given you some strength, so you're very much aware of where you are, what's going on, and maybe what's going on with them. I would say that you're going to say, "Hey, mom, I need to talk with you about something very important." It's no judgment. It's not pointing fingers at you. It's just having a conversation. I want you to be as open as you possibly can because you may feel uncomfortable about it, especially if you're saying, "Hey, you might have it too," right? And so again, if you have questions, I can try to answer those questions for you. If I can't, my therapist is what I'm willing to help you process that because sometimes education is important, and then you can start the conversation. Yeah, but it needs to be happening.
I agreed. Back to the brother Remy's question with regards to Mrs. White, and I agreed what Pastor said. But I remember statistics that those people that keep following, reading Mrs. White's writings, is 83% they remain in church compared to those people who does not.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. All righty.
Yes, yes. How do we communicate with the Gen Z generation where there's such a generation gap and we're trying to talk to them and instill discipline and they just can't get it no matter what you try? I've seen situation and I've experienced it also. What's the best way? I know we have to listen to them. Like Pastor Walker always say, listen to your children. Sometimes we listen, but we're not really listening. I mean, and there's you hear them, yeah, but there's a problem. What's the best solution going forward? How should we approach that? How about when they are not talking, like Sister Marian suggested?
So, some people are naturally introverted, but introversion means we're motivated internally, right? Right? Has nothing to do with not talking. So we have to look at the reason why. What's going on in their head? When sometimes they might be saying, "You don't understand. So talking is wasting my time," right? Or thank you very much. Or we don't have that kind of relationship. So why am I talking, right? Clinically, we say even kids that are misbehaving, we want to ask them, why are they misbehaving? They're trying to tell you something, but just not understanding it. Right, sister? Sister Monica, right? I said kids are misbehaving, they're trying to tell you something, but we don't, it's not being done as opposed to not understanding what's going on because they're reacting. So, as I said before, you have to choose some hills to die on. And some hills are not.
Choose either that one, that one, that one.
Yeah. So sometimes you have to, maybe meet them, say, listen, there's something called motivation interviewing where you don't have to even judge it, just ask them questions. Motivation interviewing, can look it up.
Motivation what?
Motivational interviewing.
Okay.
You ask them questions. So they're smoking. Why are you smoking? Oh, because I want to. Why do you want to? You know what? It helps you to focus.
Focus on what?
I can study better. I feel more relaxed. I can hear the song clearer. mean, there may be some ADHD thing going on and we don't even know it, right? But you know, you want to find a way, and I'm a teenager too, right? So you got to figure a way how to connect. They are totally different. Listen, we were raised to take care of our families, right? Remember to take care of mom and pop and everything else. This generation, forget it. I hear my wife say, "I'm saving my money for my old age," right?
And
Yeah, it's a different generation, right? But we have to find a way. And if you feel that you're not reaching that person, then be professional.
And what I notice, regardless of the nationality, Chinese, Jamaica, wherever they are, they have similar problems because I have this Chinese friend of mine. It's a common thing. They just can't communicate with the children.
Yeah.
You know,
And
it's
we would think that, oh, the Indian kids are so well behaved and stuff. They're going through stuff and doing stuff that you'd never believe, right? I know. Who said that? I hope there's no Indian in the house, right? But it's true, right? I don't know if it's something that it's water. It's a different generation.
And
They automatically took care of our parents, right?
And also, I notice it's like an entitlement generation. They think they're entitled to everything, but they don't want to do what you're asking them to do. I mean, I don't get it.
His father gave him a regular car, and you saw that? And he wanted some car. He says, why? He says, because he can afford it. He said, that's what you give to the car guy.
Oh my God.
$40,000 car because the father could afford a $800,000 car. He took it off the board. Yeah. Real talk. The judge was playing. Yeah. So the generation is really different. So we've got to choose a hill to die on, and like. Yeah, we don't have one person. Yes, ma'am.
Oh, so I was saying, you have to start from when you're young, from when they're young and you want to find something that you guys can do together. So sometimes parents talk too much and want to talk. So find something that the child likes that you can do together, and then you build that bond there, and then the child will probably start to talk to you more. But if you just want to talk, you know, most teenagers they don't want to talk. So you want to find a bond, you know, that something that you guys have in common that you can do. And then you also have to allow the child to be themselves and to choose things that they want to do that you probably would not want to do, as long we're Adventists, as long as it's something that's Christian like. Yeah, so it cannot be something out of the realm of being a Christian, but you have to give them some autonomy to do things that they want to do too, not everything that you want to do too. And then you want to build a bond of something that you guys do together. The other thing too, you want to from that age, you want to set down kids function by rules, and what knows what to come next, and you need to set down rules. You want to limit social media. You can't start to limit social media when they're 16. You already lost the battle. You have to do it from when they're 7 or 8. Huh? Yes, so then you have to start from when they're young. You can't try to tell him to put his phone up at 16, and if you're on your phone too, you can't tell him that he needs to be off his phone. So you have to set limits as parents. And kids function more on limits. Kids don't want to be misbehaving. They want somebody to tell them what to do and to have some limits within reason.
And then my doctor is the person telling you, but you did this before. Wrong time. You're reminding me? Because you will do it the second time, right? But you did it before, right? Or you're the one who gave me this. You got to be very careful with kids. But the other thing too with children is that you kind of want to meet them somewhere. Negotiation is good. Negotiation means that I walk away with something and you walk away with something. So in that, because a lot of times they figure like, oh, you just want to have it your way. So you want to find some middle ground, right? And that sounds like a reasonable medium with that. All right, let me just take her and come to you, ma'am. Is that okay? Okay.
Okay, so you mentioned ADHD. I have kids with ADHD, but I'm from a Caribbean background, And anytime I try to get support from family members or friends or church people, they'll tell you, oh, God, so everybody have ADHD. We all have ADHD. You know, it's like a normal, it's like a normal thing. So just let the child be himself. Let the child free up, you know? So I'm like, okay, I see behaviors in my child that you don't see. I'm with my child 24/7. I'm telling you, it's a real thing. So why is it that some people think it's just like a child is just stubborn or a child is just for example, my child is very, very intelligent, okay? But sometimes he's so unfocused that he missed the whole lesson, right?
That's it.
And so
That's the problem.
and so once he's focused, oh, nobody's above him, right? And at the end of the day, I'm just trying to figure out why certain parts of the world believe that ADHD is not a real illness and they take it for granted when it's really something very important.
Education. They don't know about it. Because, for example, the kid who throws spitball at people in the room, oh, it's just ADHD. No, man, that's behavior. That's behavior. Because the diagnosis doesn't carry that as a symptom, right? Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Back to our children who are Gen Z or the millennials. I have two millennials. So we raise them, right? So the word entitlement is really coming from us. We entitled them, right? So now that they are on their own, they can think on their own, then we question them. My point is, I have two daughters. One is very quiet, and one can talk nonstop. So my approach to both of them are totally different. So in my point is, this one who talk nonstop, you tell her, hey, you vacuum the whatever, and she will say, okay, but she'll never do it. The other one will say, yes. The other one, no, I'm not going to, but she'll do it. So what I do, I let them write what they think, and I make contracts, written contracts with them. This is my expectations from you, and what are your expectations from your mother? And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I write my thoughts, I write my expectations. They don't like the word expectations now, right? But I tell them, you write your story. They love that. So you have to play with their mindset. You have to know them. We have to outsmart them. We have to read what they are reading. Yeah. So once we outline the problems, their solutions, their story, and then I write my story next to it. And guess what? I let them sign.
So, when we're buying a house, you have to buy a house to make sure my daughter has her own bathroom and nobody's can access it. And then we don't want her to use any other towel but her towels. Not thinking that we're sending a kid out to college that's going to have to share a room and a bathroom. So this kid has never had to share, never had to worry about it, never had to clean the bathroom herself. And now in college, we don't do helpers in college, right? You gotta do it. Entitled. And so now she wants her own everything in college, which means if 12 of you are paying, $10,000 because you're sharing a room, if you get a room for yourself, it's gonna be what? $20,000, right? Because you're having it by yourself. Oh no, that's too expensive. Oh, but I'm not used to entitled. We do it. We can get the handbook on raising kids, but that's what I like doing group therapy and doing support groups because people come with their success stories, what worked for them, and we can pull from here and there and apply it to our situation and see if it works. It may not, but at least we're getting tools from different people sharing experiences and what worked for them and how we can make it, with our kids. But it is a difficult experience, right? And some things you don't want to even Don't want to die there. Pick your battles, pick your hills, and say, this one is my integrity. This one is my religious conviction. I will die here for this. This is when you gotta go. But other things, we try to negotiate. Hey, you do this. This is what we have to offer here. We can work together and see how best we can make it happen, right? So it takes the things. And remember, my responses are very generic, be very clear. If I was to speak to you one-on-one, my response may be more defined. That's a disclaimer tonight.
We mentioned about hallucination or hallucinating earlier. Now, I've heard before, but there are preachers who stood in the pulpit who said, this is supposed to be the subject that I'm going to bring you. But God had talked to me last night.
Can we have one voice?
God,
It's not all working 'cause I'm
okay.
getting distracted.
We mentioned about hallucinating or hallucination. I asked this question because I've heard some preacher before they start the sermon, the preacher had said, this is supposed to be the subject that I'm going to bring you. But God had talked to me last night that I have to change it to this subject. My question is, do we have to believe him or he's just hallucinating?
That doesn't sound like hallucination to me. I think that's a way of expression. So, for example, listen. I had a different sermon in mind to preach, and then or to speak on this today, and then the Spirit came and gave me a different idea. It's not that I'm saying the Spirit literally came and said, things where you've got to do this, right? It's just a way of expression, right? Most times when we say that, the Holy Spirit, said I should do this instead, or second small voice said that. But it's when they're exploring clinically the voices, it's a very different presentation. And they usually exhibit other symptoms as well, besides just the authorization.
Yeah, Dr. Lightbody. I'm right here. What you say is correct. I mean, we do a lot of damage to our children without even knowing it. Because, for example, in the Caribbean, we sleep on one bed with 3, 4 brothers, and you know what I mean. We don't have our own TV, one black and white TV, and everybody have to pile into a room. No, here am I in America now. I buy my son a TV and a VCR and all the things. What you say is true. So now the damage is done. Like you said, when he goes to college, why do I have to share a TV? I have my own TV at home on my own bed. So what do we do now? Because I mean, like you said, we didn't get a handbook. And how can you reverse that? No, they're growing up, they're teenagers, and they're
There's no reversing of that. You gotta pick up where you are and say, son, I made some mistake. This is what you could face. Now, here's some things that we're gonna do moving forward. You're gonna one day go to college. You gotta share. You can't afford it. Reality check, right? But it's like opportunity. Hey, there's a rest of college, we can't. Right? But we can move from my saying. So these are some realistic expectations. When you're ready to go to college, you're gonna have to share. Get this straight from now, right? Yes.
Well, I'm from the islands, and when we were growing
Island, St. Lucia.
correct.
All right, there we
So
go.
when we were growing up, we had chores. It's just
You had what?
we had chores.
Chores,
So
yes.
they had how many? 5 of us all together. During breakfast, if this one wash the dishes, this one fold the clothes. So we had different stuff to do. Even if we go school, not because you go school, you come back, you just do homework and that's it. No, sir. You either have to go sweep the yard or feed the pig or whatever you have to do. We had chores. So now I'm here. Now I have a kid. So the same thing, she knows we have chores. So I've taught her, okay, if it's during the week we work, you want ballet come with a price. Because I have to dish out money to pay for the ballet or gymnastic, whatever. So she knows mostly because we're home on Sundays, unless we have to go somewhere. So she can tell you. She go down the list. She said, "Oh, you know, Sundays we clean house." So she knows that already. And sometimes if I'm doing dishes, she's already dusting for me, or she'll pull the vacuum, she'll vacuum. So she knows specifics. So I'm teaching her. So hopefully, when she gets a little bit older, because she's just 9, so she can still be able to do that. It's not just, okay, I'll get up and I have to give you breakfast, I have to wash your clothes and do all this, and you nanny and you just sit there, don't do nothing. You have to.
And I
That's what I'm
also,
saying for now.
when I-
I don't know for when she turns
when I
the
go
two
to,
digits.
before I go to work, I tell her, it's like, okay, help mommy because I'm going to work.
And she does.
And she does.
Good for you. My daughter, guess what? Only one, right? So she's got her self-made helpers.
And she has life skills. She has life skills to leave her house.
Yes, and so we have to be, we listen, we create the damage. We don't want to deal with it after. So yeah, you know what, Sister White left these amazing books. Adventist Home is every parent should read. Now grandparents stop because you know when you do with the grandkids, you spoil them, right? So you should start reading again, right? So it's not too late for you to read. I'm trying to help the younger one, but it's a challenge. Yes, my brother.
Yeah. So what I was about to say is that
Let's hear him.
what I was about to say, you just hit it on the nail. Is that when it comes to these youths, like for myself, I don't believe in the word millennial and all this other stuff. Why? Because to me, that's the American thing. Okay, so when it comes to these kids, like you just said, it falls back on us, the parents, on how we raise the kids up. Like the Bible says, train up a child in the way it shall go. So if we don't groom them and train them from a child coming up, now by the time they are like 12, 13 years old, it's harder to train them or to groom them the way how we want them to go. And like you just said, Ellen G. White has a lot of books out there for us that needs help as well. But we do need to, work on these kids from the time they are small coming up.
Yeah, I hear an accent. Where's the accent from? St. Kitts? Antigua. Okay, Antigua.
With all of this being true, one of the things we seem to not pay attention to is dispensation. And so we process and program things according to how we were brought up, when we were born, what the time was like during that time, which isn't good enough. We have to understand where we are now. It's different. You have never seen it like this. Our children are different. The way things are done are different. So although we want to grow our children the way we were grown, the reality is that it doesn't work that way anymore. It doesn't say you cannot instill or we cannot instill in them some ground rules, some values according to thus saith the Lord. And you mentioned Adventist Home. Child guidance is another good one. But let us wake up. It's the same way we interpret Bible. We interpret the Bible back in our days when that's not necessarily the proper way to do it. So we need to understand and move with the time. That's what I recognize a lot of Adventists doesn't do. They do not move with the time and bring into reality that which is happening and what the Bible has to say about it. Because the Bible is the book that we cannot say is outdated. It is always relevant. But you'll hear me say from time to time, the 3 P's: policy, principle, and practice. The only one that doesn't change is principle. But our policy and our practices change as we move from dispensation to dispensation. So what we are doing, and my advice to young parents or grandparents, is to look at the reality of the time. Look at what is happening as we school our children, because we cannot depend upon how as good as the old days were. This ain't no time for old days. We have to face the reality.
My experience? I have I have 7 grandkids. My 9-year-old, who frequently, if her dad speak to her about something that she's doing, during our conversation, when we phone conversation, first of all, she would ask her father, "Dad, that's how Grandma Monica did to you, talk to you about? That's how she corrected you?" And then Phoenix would call me, and she would detail what happened between her, and her dad. And then she would question me, "How come you told dad, you trained dad to do such and such?" So it's like I did something that was not what I was supposed to. She's not blaming me. She's asking for an explanation why I told dad, even for doing things, clean her bathroom, and he will tell her we had to do chores. And that's the big problem, especially on Saturday morning, for her to do chores. He write down assignment. She has her own bathroom. If that's your bathroom, you must keep it clean. And she will call me, "But Grandma, but why didn't you clean your bathroom? Why did you make dad, and he's a boy, to clean bathroom and do things in the house?" She's always asking why, because she does not agree with those things.
Good question. Yes. All right. So I will take one or two more questions, Pastor, and then we will wrap up. And then we'll just kind of wrap. Yes, my brother. Sister.
Oh, back to Pastor. Pastor, you mentioned like how things used to be done in the old days in comparison to now, right? Now, my son said to me some time ago, "But mom, this is how teenagers behave." And I was like, "Okay, this is how teenagers behave." And I said, "But that is not how you were grown. This is totally different." But getting him to do what he's supposed to do, he's adamant that this is how teenagers behave. Now, how do I respond to something like that? And how do I get him to change the mindset that, fine, you're a teenager, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to follow the populace. It behave in that way. We know that we have cell phones now that seem to have taken over, where parenting as it relates to parenting our children. How do we deal with that now, Pastor? Knowing that we have a different dispensation, different age, because I am totally lost.
Can I say something real quick before that?
answer
No,
first?
no, but no, what Pastor mentioned, I want to just add to it really. The fact that you said it's a different time, and I agree, because it's a culture shock for us when we come from the Caribbean and come in this country, and then we see what's going on. For example, you cannot discipline your children too much when they reach a certain age because they'll call the police. It happened to a friend of mine. He beat his son called the police, they lock him up for the whole weekend. You understand? Things like that. Another thing I observe, you have grandchildren, you see them doing something wrong and you want to slap them. Nothing wrong. Don't spare the rod. The Bible said it, right? And you want to spank them, and your daughter or son might say, "Don't touch my child." Now that child grow in the home, and before you know it, that child started to disrespect you inside the act up. And now you as a grandparent, you cannot do nothing. How do you handle that?
Yes, I see some parents, my mother told me that she was just trying to escape the little girl attacked her. She was trying to escape the little girl threw her back down. What are we talking about? This is your home, right? But pastor want to respond if I can be the
Yes, it must be understood. The Bible is always right. Proverbs 22:6 says, train up a child in the way he should go. When he is old, he'll not depart from that way. One of the challenges, or one of the things that we are reaping, is our inconsistency as parents. And therefore, back in my days, children must be seen and not heard. And if you, as we would say in Jamaica, back chat your parents, expect a right hand or something. But the reality is that we have fallen along the way as parents. Hence, we are reaping what we have sown. So, the horse has gone through the gate. And with all best intention, we have to make sure that we take on 2 or 3 jobs. We don't have time for the children, and so the television take care of them, which also leads to another mental health challenge, because sometimes those whom we left them with has abused them one way or another, maybe not sexually, but verbally or otherwise. And we need to face the reality. And I'm speaking this as a parent.
And he's a father of 4,
5.
So hey, he outranks me.
Plus others who are not blood related that we mothered and fathered. So, what did we do? All we did was use the Bible to grow our children and be honest with them, telling them what are the consequences for action based upon the Word of God. Did they give trouble? Of course they did. Of course. It might not.
Confirming.
While we didn't do it consistently, and what I recognize as they grew up and we became more educated in the whole matter of child rearing, we discontinue whipping, corporal punishment, and use methods that were more conducive to the time that we were living in. And we praise God. All our children are in the church, actively in the church. But when we were doing it, it was not easy. So what did we do? I say we stuck to the Bible. We didn't even go to Spirit of Prophecy. We stuck to the Bible. And I wasn't a pastor then, but I read biblical stories to my children and explained it to them and share with them the consequences if they do not obey what God says. And by God's grace, it worked. So the point I'm making is that a lot of us don't recognize that we got to catch the child in the formative years. If we don't do that, later on, when they are teenagers growing up, the horse would have already gone through the gate. And we have grandchildren now, 5. Yes. And we see it's a different way. We can't grow them like how we grew our children. However, our children are aware of what they went through. And so They consult us and we advise them accordingly because they ain't our children. We are just grandparents. So mommy and daddy need to have that strong influence in their life as we guide them along.
All right, one last question.
Yeah, well, some people, Pastor, to other people's point, some people don't have all of the extended family to work with that you may have. And there are single women here without male role. There are other things where they don't have grandparents who are consistently there for them. There's a lot of these other things, especially in this society, which is much more spread out than maybe Jamaica or other places. And so there isn't that close family structure. They may be in the Philippines, but now they're here. And I'm saying that those are the problems too that exist, is that they don't have the, the communication channels to work the various levels of the age generations and the male-female role in some areas here.
That's true.
I've worked a lot as a nurse practitioner in child development and one of the things that I have to talk with parents about a lot is who's being the parent here. Is your 2-year-old the parent now or are you the parent? And so there needs to be some control, loving control, but firm parenting.
Absolutely, you're absolutely correct. Thank you so much for sharing. It has been a pleasure being here. I had a wonderful time with you. But sadly, I must take my leave because we travel. Sorry? I have, listen, I tell you, I can go, right? But when you've been married, for as long as I've been married, you get the message, okay? You get the message. But I enjoy every moment of it being here with you. I got to know you a lot better, and thank you for trusting me with your questions. I do have a list of questions that I did not get to because you guys were so awesome. So if you wrote a question on this and you didn't hear a response, please speak with Pastor and I will give you a free 30-minute consult so you can get your question answered because I failed to take care of that because we're so busy with questions. But I don't want to leave you dishonoring your efforts. So if you wrote a question here, please see Pastor and I will be more than happy to answer the question for you. I'm going to keep it, so you must ask me the same question, okay? And a little extra in the 30 minutes for it, right? But I really thank you so much for your time and for allowing my family to be here. I'm not had Ackee and salvation a very long time. So that was good. My daughter enjoyed the yams, right? We haven't had it. I refuse to drive 30 minutes to go buy a yam or 40 minutes. I'm just not doing it. So I just don't get it. If it's right there, I'll get it, but I'm not driving far. So thank you for your hospitality. I enjoyed the questions. I hope we're able to answer as many of your questions and they were, to your liking and it was clear for you. But listen, you have a great pastor and you are a great church. We just have to adjust a little bit because you've now been, so when more knowledge is given, more is expected, right? So we do that. So I want to leave with God's richest blessings. Become more mentally aware. This is a hospital for people, right? With mental illness, emotional illness, physical illness, and spiritual illness, right? And so we want to cater to all the needs so that we can be mentally stable. There's a saying back home that your health is your greatest wealth, and that includes your mental health. So if you treasure your mental health, everything else will fall in place. May God be with you. One quick housekeeping matter, my dear sister Sharon. If you get my number from Pastor, I'm going to follow up with you. I want you to mobilize your ladies. You've had several volunteers here and men to assist my sister. The statistics of suicide among elderly who have lost a loved one is high, and she's within that phase where it is possible. She also indicated, they one attempt that overdosing, so it is not something to take lightly. I'm going to give you my number to call me if you need me. My wife isn't home in the week, so if you call me at 3 in the morning, if I answer, don't Not on the weekends. She's home on the weekends. but I would not be able to sleep well knowing that she is not feeling well. And so let us attend, rally around her. Whatever things her husband is to do, she's going to need that support. Eventually, she will wean away and be able to stabilize herself. But right now, she's in a very volatile stage, acute state, and we want to make sure that we are supporting her. A loss is a loss for us. He says, I'm so glad I'm a part of the family of God. When one has a heartache, we all share the pains because we're family and the folks are so dear, right? So let us mobilize ourselves and focus on her and anyone else that needs our support, because now we're going to be a church that has been what? Trauma informed, mental health informed, and we're going to show that we do that. All right. So thank you so much and have a wonderful rest of the evening. Thank God.
Okay, thank you. In appreciation to Pastor and to Doctor, can we please stand and give appreciation with a big applause and for appreciation, please?